Right, we're on. Johnny Bevan, the police burnout coach, and I'm here with, I was going to say my very special guest, which you are, but also my first guest.
Ah,
Unbelievable.
well, pleasure to be here, Johnny. Thank you very much for asking me.
My very first guest, and I'm delighted to say that he's also, for those who can't see, he's also ginger. So it's doubly
Yeah,
special.
I'm going bold, which I think for a ginger person's kind of like a get out of jail free card. So, but for what I have left, it is ginger. Yeah,
So, Carl, I'm here with Carl Radley. Carl, tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what's your name, where'd you come from, all that sort of stuff.
absolutely. So I'm from the UK, from Essex, but I live in Barcelona. I came here about 15 years ago and have worked predominantly in client service management for large corporate companies, but in the last couple of years have been on a bit of a transformational journey. I lost weight and become healthier as I wanted to become as fit and healthy as I could for entering my 40s, despite looking much younger before you say it. And basically, as a result of that, started a podcast and have become a coach. And that's
Uh,
pretty much what's happened in the last year and a half.
what's your podcast called?
So the podcast is called Weight Loss Warrior, and I started that as a way to help other people who are on a weight loss journey or a transformational journey, not just for weight loss, but also for improving mental health and mindset. And it's really for people who might be struggling or don't have the support that they need. So they can tune into my episodes where we celebrate success stories and talk to people who have been on a transformational journey, and they share their tips and advice and how they overcome the obstacles that they faced.
Brilliant, because you'll send me all your links, won't you? We'll put that in so anyone's listening to this that knows if there's someone that you can help or they know someone else you can help, we can put all that
That'd be
in, can't we?
brilliant.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
There we go. So the reason we're doing this today is because you've not long finished my 16-week coaching program, have you? We've had the pleasure of I've had the pleasure of coaching you, which has been amazing. And all I wanted to do was to get you on just to see sort of what things were like before, why you decided to come for coaching, what you found good, what you found bad, which is obviously nothing. Um, but and all just from your point of view, how you found it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so first of all, what made you decide to get coached?
Okay, so to give a bit of context to it, I we actually started coaching the day after my 40th birthday. And I don't know, you didn't wish me a happy birthday, but I've let it go now. Um, I think you did actually, to be fair to
I
you.
think I did. That was your
But,
birthday present.
yeah. Um, so basically, as I started to become a coach and I was becoming certified and doing my coaching training to help other people, I kept hearing a lot of people saying that you can only help people as much as you've helped yourself and only go as deep into your coaching with other people based on how much you've looked into your own barriers, limiting beliefs. And so I was curious about being coached in order to, first of all, be a better coach for other people, but also because I have a lot of, or had a, I won't say a lot, but there's specific themes that had been present in my life that I felt prevented me from reaching my potential and held me back. And I really wanted to do something about them because on one side, I felt like I had all of this potential, using that word again, potential. But on the other side, I felt like I was held back by procrastination, held back by not believing in myself enough, thinking that I could only do so much and never getting to the end result. And so I guess one of the reasons decided to start coaching was to solve those issues.
Mm. And did you have any sort of apprehensions? Because had you been, sorry, first of all, had you been coached before? Had you ever had coaching?
So I'd had some coaching actually previously in but shorter blocks. I'd never signed up to a 16-week program. It had been, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks of coaching, but never to this level. And so your question about if I had any apprehension, there was some, if I'm honest with you, because first of all, it's an investment. And although it's easy for me to say this now, I've come through the other side about 16 weeks to say that, you know, I you can't put a price on your own personal development if it unlocks doors and helps you to do so many new things. But before you enter that, there's always that doubt. Is this going to be worth the money? Am I going to get what I want out of it? And for me specifically, I had been through other situations in my past where I'd spent money or invested money on something that I thought would get me a big return and didn't, in terms of starting businesses, in terms of having the next big idea that I thought was going to really help me. So there was some doubts there that is this going to be another one of those situations where if I throw money at something, I feel like I'm going to get success. Whereas this time around, I really needed it to be more about developing myself at quite a core level in order to achieve the success that I wanted to.
And that's the thing, isn't it? With the coaching, you come to like a consult, and as the coach, you sort of say, actually, this is where your problem is, this is where you can be. But it's not like something tangible that you can see, is there? So it's a lot of based around that belief, isn't it? So
100%.
so even though, like you said, like you had those doubts, what is it that made you go, yeah, okay, I'm going to commit to it, I'm going to do it?
So I think probably two key things. First of all, having spoken to somebody else you were coaching and hearing the feedback and really glowing praise at how good of a coach you are. So that was one thing, and seeing the results, I think, of you coaching somebody else. That was a big part of it. So it was a recommendation. But the other part as well was that I felt that if I took this seriously, I could get out of it as much as I wanted to. So although you being a good coach is important, I felt that by investing in myself at this time, by really putting myself out there on the line, and it was all tied into the fact that I was turning 40, it just felt ready. I just felt ready, and it felt like the right time to really level up a little bit, I guess.
And do you know what? I think that is the key bit, what you just said there, because I think I see in some people this sort of almost determination, and it's this decision that they're ready. Because like there are doubts, there are beliefs, aren't there? Because someone's telling you the other side, the coach is telling you, I can, we'll get you where you want to go. We'll get you to what you want. But you can't see that. And there's a lot of trust there, isn't there? Like that sort of, but you're going, oh, I'm not sure. But it's almost that I'm just deciding to do it. Is that, and I really think that is the key, isn't it? That commitment that you bring. And I truly believe that you seen such changes because you were committed, because you did that, and you almost decided ahead of time that this is going to work.
I think so. I think when I look back at it now, I definitely think, being ready for that, having the willingness to invest in my own time, in my own space to develop my potential was important. But then there was something else that you said to me, because before we'd even talked about coaching together, something that you had said to me on a conversation we'd had was, why don't you have your own business? And the way you asked me, and it wasn't done, I don't know if it's done from a coaching perspective, but it's just a conversation, but why don't you have your own business? And it hit me because I couldn't think of a reasonable answer, because all my life I've wanted my own business. All my life I've wanted to do these things, but it's never happened. And that was a real, I think, defining moment for me, because then when I was looking for a coach, I still had in the back of my mind that question that you asked me. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know the answer, but maybe through your coaching, I'll be able to get there. And I have. So,
So
I rate that as a success.
what was the changes you've seen then? So where, if you tell us a bit about sort of where you were and what are the changes you've seen?
Absolutely. So I think going into coaching, I was at a stage where I had a lot of what I considered to be good ideas and how I wanted to develop into a coach, how I wanted to help people, how I wanted to take the podcast, which was just over a year old, to that next level and use that as part of my coaching business. But then I recognized a pattern in myself over years where I'd had a great idea, started very, very strong, and then kind of tailed off, and it kind of just drifted into nothing, where there was no kind of conclusion. It wasn't a success or a failure. It just was left open-ended. But there was something different about the podcast and wanting to help people. I found something different within this project, in that I didn't want it to just drift off into nothing. I didn't want it to fail, because I could see that I was helping people. So there was a much deeper level of almost duty to want this to work. And so I wanted to do it right. So I think that helped me to make the decision to get coached as well, because it just felt more important this time. And I didn't want to be the reason that it didn't succeed. So knowing that, and also being realistic with myself, that I procrastinate on a lot of things that either seem difficult or maybe uninteresting in that moment. I have this tendency to go off and chase shiny objects, and sometimes I just need to focus and do the work. And this was something that I hope to get out of coaching, and something that I recognized as needing to improve in order to actually get to where I needed to be in terms of running a business.
And, and where are you now? Sorry, coughing. Where are you now with the procrastination?
So, I mean, it's still there on some
Mm.
days. I'm not going to say that it's completely gone, magically disappeared forever, because I don't think it's possible that that even happens to anybody who works on it for years and years. There's always going to be instances of it. But I think what I've learned here is how to manage it and how to recognize the signs of it happening before I find myself 3 hours later doom scrolling on Instagram, not getting anything done. So it's helped me now. And the techniques I've learned, the way I actually approach topics, is if I have to do something that isn't very appealing to me, I have a technique now and a method to go through that task and complete it in a time frame that's reasonable. Whereas before, I would leave things right until the last minute. I would leave things until it was critical, where there was a consequence of not doing it. And all that space between the opportunity to do it and that pivotal moment where it had to be done would just be kind of like blank space of me flitting around and not doing something. Whereas now I've realized that by doing that thing, because I always feel better after I've done it. And I think most people who procrastinate have that same relief and feeling that, why didn't I just do it sooner?
Mm.
But I wasn't able to join those dots to the point of actually doing it sooner. Whereas now, if I have a task in front of me, it's more about just getting the task done as opposed to having an emotional connection to it or sitting there worrying about the outcome. Because that's another thing, procrastination, I realized and didn't know this before, is often tied to perfectionism, which was something I would never in this
Yeah.
world said that I had. But we've discovered through coaching and how closely linked that has been to procrastination.
Mm.
And now I've got tools and strategies to manage both of those things. And it's just accelerated my progress tenfold.
Because it's really interesting, wasn't it? Because you had this, we identified, didn't we, that you just like, and I love what you say about procrastination, as in like we hear all these things about eliminate procrastination. I think it's fear based. We can't eliminate fear, and we're not going to eliminate the desire to procrastinate. But it's that being a bit kind to yourself when you do it, isn't it? And recognizing
Mhm.
why it is, and then just being aware of it, really. And but we noticed this pattern, didn't we, where you would, which is really common, where you'd sort of procrastinate, then leave things to the last minute, and then you do it almost that. And it's such a common thing for people to say is, oh, well, I work well under pressure. But actually, the energy you were working from was like this real sort of fear base, which is quite
Mhm.
exhausting, isn't it? And you'll tell us more about that. But it's, and but when you suddenly realize that you got used to that energy getting it done, because there's no doubt when you leave things to the last minute, you then have to get it done. So it works, but you become reliant on that energy to get it done. So then you're always leaving stuff to the last minute. But by shifting that, we managed to sort of move it so that you're setting your parameters, getting it done. So then you're like, and you said before, you're coming from that energy of duty rather than fear.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is one of the most interesting things that I learned, that, and like you said, people who say, oh, I work well under pressure, or, that motivation, that spark when it's close to it, it's almost exciting, but it's really not when, at least in my case, when I dissected it and really looked at it. And the reason that I was working so well under pressure was because there was no other option. I had a meeting in less than 30 minutes time and the presentation had to be ready. That's not exciting. It's stressful. And since finding out I had to do that presentation, the thought of doing the work would enter my mind daily, multiple times a day. So
Mm.
that takes up energy. And then putting it off, there's guilt that creeps in and wondering if you can actually do it, and doubt, that takes energy. And then the energy that you use to actually finalize the project, it isn't usually your best work. And so it's tiring. And then you have that regret afterwards. Oh, well, if I'd done it sooner, maybe I could have done a better job.
Yeah,
And it's constantly like you're coming from behind.
and I think that love, you could have phrased that a little bit different. I knew you were
I,
gonna let that go. I knew.
I was going to be professional there, John.
Yeah. No, it's a bit of coming from behind, never hurt anyone. So it's I've lost my train now. But but also what I find fascinating is when you have that fear, it's smirking like a little kid now, aren't you?
I just don't feel like I'm serious.
Soon as you,
Right.
because this is what I see is because then you get used to this energy of fear. But then what happens is you, when I say you, I mean as in the royal you, we we suddenly end up not wanting to do the work even more because we're motivated to avoid any discomfort and move towards sort of pleasure. So suddenly, when we then think about these tasks, because our last experience was, oh, it's stressful and it was all like this, actually, we then want to avoid it more and more. And it just sort of perpetuates a cycle, doesn't it?
There's that, absolutely. And then in addition to that, if the motivation that you get to do the job always comes at the end when you're under extreme pressure to do it, it's almost as if leading up to that moment, there's even less motivation than there would be normally because you feel like you're missing that spark to actually get the thing done. Whereas one of the things I learned from us coaching, it doesn't have to be an emotional journey at all. You don't have to wait for that motivation to do it. And quite often, once you get started, that's all you needed. Just that initial kick up the arse, so to speak, to get started. And one of the techniques, just do 10 minutes, just commit to 10 minutes. But very rarely when I committed to only doing 10 minutes, did I stop at 10 minutes and go, okay, well, that's enough.
Mm.
I realized that, okay, I'm here now. Let's finish it. And the feeling that comes on the other side of completing it ahead of time, knowing that you did it ultimately just because you chose to, not because you had to, it's really, really liberating. And then you start thinking, okay, well, if I've done that just because I wanted to or I chose to, what else can I do? And then all of a sudden you find yourself working from a place of wanting to progress, from building momentum, from doing things because you're choosing to. And the energy that you create things, the energy that you do them, it opens up so many more doors, I believe, of opportunity, of doing better work, of different experiences, because it's coming from a completely different energy of choosing to rather than having to.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? That's huge, that choosing to, because you actually want to do it rather than that you have to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So, what would you, have you got anything else to say about that, Carl? Have you got anything else that you want to add or anything like that about the sort of procrastination or anything else that you've sort of learned
I mean,
that you've come
about
across?
procrastination specifically, just that it's something that I realize with those tools, it's something the more you practice, the better at it you get in terms of avoiding procrastination
Mm.
and dealing with it and managing it. And it doesn't have to be about the big projects or a very important task. It can be about something as silly as emptying the dishwasher when it goes off. Instead of waiting and waiting and waiting until you've got all the sink piling up with dishes and then emptying it because you have to,
Mm.
it just has, I mean, that's a bit of a crap example. Actually, it's not a crap example because there's so many different things like that that can completely change your life because you're not just doing things at the last minute all the time. You're doing things from a completely different space. So I think having that structure and having a strategy to manage procrastination is really, really powerful.
And I think people think to overcome it is just strategy, isn't it? But a lot of what we did was actually going into what was the thinking that was driving that procrastination because you can read any book, can't you? You can read any book, and I've read lots of books on procrastination, and it's all the same: start, just start. And we all know if you're not doing something, the answer is to do it. But
Mhm.
it's interesting, isn't it, when you start exploring the reason you don't want to do it, and you realize, and that's the big thing I think we realize, isn't that, as in like it's not this work that's the problem; it's the meaning that your brain is given to the work and why it's trying to avoid it.
Yeah, and that's something that a book, at least no book that I've read, and as someone who has been struggling with procrastination for many years, I would always kind of lean towards that kind of self-help book if I was going to buy one. And I've got a few sat here next to me, and they provide you. I've not read many of them, um, but the thing is about them is they give you, like you said, they give you a strategy, but it's very one size fits all, and it doesn't look in necessary to the specifics of why you procrastinate. Now, I'm sure for most people and a lot of people, there's commonalities and core reasons why we procrastinate. But one of the things about us coaching together has been to really say, okay, so in this particular moment, and it hasn't always been within a session, it could be in between sessions, you say, okay, let me know. And in that moment, really think about what is the thought there? What is the feeling there? Why are you procrastinating in that moment? And that's something that a book doesn't offer, because we were able to talk through that, work through it, give it the space it needed to be processed, and then continue with it. And that's something that I'd never tried before. It's something I'd never thought, well, I wasn't even aware of it as a technique, to be honest with you, or how to manage that. But it's really been pivotal in me improving and procrastinating less.
So what would you say to anyone that was considering coaching, but is a bit on the fence with it? Like, that's sort of, because what I see a lot of people is they're in that position where they hear it and they go, well, I've heard that, I'll apply that myself. But they're a bit like in that sort of in between.
So I'd ask yourself, if you're considering coaching, what the barrier is, why you are saying no. Because I've read a lot of books, I'd watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I would consider myself someone who had the tools to achieve success, but for whatever reason hadn't done and had chosen not to. And I truly believe by having somebody to help you be accountable, somebody to talk through it and give a different perspective of that, allows you to progress, and much, much quicker than you probably could on your own. So in all honesty, I'd say if you are blocked by something, if you are facing a challenge that you have dealt with or been managing for many years and want to get rid of, or you don't feel equipped to do it or have tried and failed, then I'd 100% say try coaching. Because coaching isn't about necessarily being told you have to do this, that, and the other to be able to be successful. And this was something, part of the problem that I faced, but I was always looking for somebody to tell me, if you want to be successful, you have to do this. I was looking for this blueprint. And this is something we've coached on a lot, because it's linked to fear, it's linked to perfectionism. And one of the things I loved about coaching wasn't like somebody saying you have to do this, this, and this. It was asking the questions, okay, why do I specifically do these things? How would I like to do them differently? How would the person who's successful at this do it? And then joining all that together to actually go on and do it. And I just think from a growth perspective, personally, it's in 16 weeks, I've done more personal development with a coach, with yourself, than in years leading up to that moment.
Yeah, and it's almost like a key to unlock your potential, isn't it? Like like when you were saying, like we often look to other people, but for me, what I seen with you is like you started to really trust yourself, and that when you were looking to others, actually looking to yourself and going trusting yourself. This is the way I want to do it, and then implementing that and removing all that fear, so you can actually do it your way. And you've shown that that works. It does work for you, doesn't it?
It works. It still shocks me sometimes. And again, other things we've coached on: imposter syndrome, me getting out of my own way to be able to tell people I'm a coach, me shitting my pants because of the fact that I sent a message out to the wrong group of people and it went to all my personal Facebook friends instead of my business page, and telling everybody I was a coach when I was unprepared for it. All of these things that I've gone through at different stages and living with that fear. But instead of using it and then retreating or hiding away from it, I've managed to use it to actually go on to the next level. And so every time like I've hit that upper ceiling, I've managed to process it and then keep going. Whereas previous to having a coach or being coached, I was unable to actually break through that. So I would find myself like hitting a wall and then basically retreating, bouncing back and not being able to break through that. And it's something that, I mean, one example I'll give short, just quickly, that in October or November, beginning of November, I said, okay, by the end of the year, I'd like to get my first coaching client. And you said to me, why are you waiting until Christmas? Why are you waiting until the end of the year? And within 4 days of us talking about that, I had my first client. And there's no way, without a coach, without talking through that, without having that space to explore why I was delaying, why I was procrastinating, there's no way I would have done it quicker. So that's why it's been so powerful for me, in that so many occasions like that where it's been a self-limiting belief, where I've held myself back, or I've allowed myself to be in my own head, and we've coached through that, and then off I go and achieve the next level.
Do you find there's a devil at every level though, Carl?
That expression, I'll be honest with you, I think it's Ron Hill who says it.
Ron
There's a
Hill.
dev
Yeah,
Ron Hill, there's a devil at every level. And it's
yeah,
so true
it is.
because I mean he's a very wise man, and a lot of what he says makes sense. But when he first said that, and I don't know if it was on a YouTube video I saw him say it, I'm not sure, but he said there's a devil at every level, and it's very true because when you hit that upper level, that is the devil, and then you learn to break through it and continue. But there's always going to be that next upper limit. So
For anyone listening, the reason I'm laughing at this is
so I try to give him a straight face.
because I was speaking. So my very, very good friend Ron Hill, um, he's also a coach and lifelong friend. And I was listening to him on Instagram, and he said this thing that really resonated with me was there's a devil at every level. And he actually said that. I was speaking to someone the other day, and they said there's a devil at every level. So I was like, oh, it really resonated at that time. I was like, yeah, that's true. Because every time you're at your comfort zone, you've got this inner critic coming in. Oh, that's good. That. And then of course we take these things and we use them and we find that works for us, so that we'll try it and work at someone else. And then I was coaching Carl, and I said I heard this the other day, and I think this could help you, that there's a devil at every level. And Carl went, where'd you hear that from? I said, Ron. He said, well, I told him that. So it went full
Brilliant.
cycle, didn't it? So yeah, we do give him
Yeah,
a little bit of ribbon about that.
that's great. The thing was, he never even took credit or said it was his own. That's the worst thing about it, is that he never once like pretended that it was his expression or quote. You know, he
No,
just
we just made out he did.
just yeah, give him hassle for it. But
Carl,
it's
I
true.
really appreciate it, because we have gone on. This was supposed to be 10 minutes, but if the but I could talk for England here. But it's but before we go, what I want to do, because the work you do is brilliant, and I think it'd just be good. We'll put all your details in the show notes anyway. But I know you've sort of touched on what you do, but what sort of people do you help, and how can they get in touch with you?
Brilliant. And I appreciate that, Johnny. Thank you. So the
All right,
coaching
that's the
I
end. All
do.
right, that's the end of the show.
Yes.
Thank you. That's enough. No, carry on.
So the coaching I do is really working on mindset with people who are on a weight loss journey. It's not specific to any particular weight loss plan. And I've designed my program to really work in harmony and in parallel with any weight loss plan, because I truly believe, as part of my own journey, from the 90 plus guests I've had on the podcast, and just from people I speak to in the weight loss community, that if you don't have your mindset and mental health in the right place, weight loss, first of all, it's never going to be sustainable. And we're talking about people here who have disordered eating, attachments, you know, to emotional eating, who strongly believe that if you lose weight, you'll be happy. But I believe that weight loss is a byproduct of good mental health and well-being. So I try and look at it from the other way, in that if you work on yourself first, if you work on self-confidence, self-esteem, building your belief, you can achieve weight loss and pretty much anything else that you want to. So I work with clients to really restore that level of self-confidence that's missing, and how to connect that to a weight loss journey so that they can reach their goal and have peace and feel happier at a really deep and inner level, not just superficially about the weight that they've potentially lost. So I've been working with people now for a number of months, had some really, really pleasing results, and, you know, I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing. So if anybody is on a weight loss journey, anybody wants support with mindset, then please do reach out to me and we can have a chat. I'd be more than happy to.
And you're, what's the best way? Is it on Instagram? Is it probably the best way, or?
Yeah, so I have a website, weightlosswarriorpodcast.com, and also Instagram, Weight Loss Warrior Podcast. They're probably the two easiest ways to find me. And you can send me a message or send me an email at carl@weightlosswarriorpodcast.com.
That is amazing. And you'll send me all that, and we'll stick that in the show notes anyway. But
Love the
Carl,
job.
thank you very much, and really appreciate you coming on. And I wish you all the best, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, and thank you for your coaching as well, John. It's been absolutely amazing.
Take it steady.
Take it steady.